Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio at African Utility Week. I'm now joined by Eric Leger, who is the country manager for Schneider Electric. Eric, welcome to the studio. Thank you for making the time. Gives you a chance to sit down and rest your feet. Eric, we were talking a little bit off air about where Schneider is going on in this continent, and it's a massive continent. You've got your job cut out looking after all of it. Tell me a little bit about what your ambitions are here.
First of all, a little bit about Schneider Electric. It's a French company. We've been now 180 years old, and we claim to be the energy management global specialist. And in Africa and in South Africa, we've been over 35 years. And for us, this utility event is one way to display our latest technologies related to prepayment metering with Conlog, or related to our advanced network management systems with Telvent and Schneider Electric.
So you're here because, as you said, Schneider does everything, or you'll build transmission lines and things like that. But you're here mainly on with the sort of metering hat on. Do you see that as the big issue at the moment?
For us, I guess, altogether, and I look after Southern Africa. There's a massive need of electrification, and the infrastructure in itself needs to improve and increase. So we think we have a duty and a contribution to make that expansion real and help the infrastructure to grow. On the prepayment or on the metering side, there are different sorts of challenges, including the collection and the financial aspect to it, where Conlog for years now has built reliable solution to help the utility to manage safely these energy flows that goes in every residential.
So the utility would outsource everything to Conlog, and they would deal with all the billing, and is that right?
Yeah, there could be different models, but it could go up to this level.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And where do you see some of the big sort of challenges within? You said earlier on there's a need for electrification within this region. Where are the challenges in terms of making that happen? Because I suppose you guys need utilities, and that's then where you come in.
One of the challenges we see is that obviously it's politically always a challenge to grow the infrastructure and invest large amount to generate more energy. So on the supply side, it's always going to be very costly and probably sensitive to create new power plants and the transmission that would distribute energy. So we think we need to focus on the demand side. And what Schneider is trying to achieve is to reduce energy, try to bring energy efficiency on the demand side from the building to the city to the grid, to help eventually the utility to face the peaks of energy. And we know that with the days and the weeks to come, there will be those peaks of energy where we need to bring intelligence and two-way communication between the users and the generators. So that's where Schneider start to play a bigger role.
So how is that gonna work? Because we obviously run events all around Africa, and I was talking to some of the content managers of those events, and they're saying, well, listen, there is a need to have power, but there's not necessarily that much of a drive to have a smart meter and everything, which would then allow you to join everything up. Where is everything, or is it quite local, some of the differences?
No, I mean, it depends where you are looking at the problem from. But if you are ESCOM and you look at your electric network, you probably want to identify those energy-intensive consumers and trade with them in a way that would incentivize them to go off the grid at a time when all the rest of your consumers would need energy the most, and probably from 6 to 7, when people go back from work, 6 to 8, you would encourage those of the largest energy intensive consumers to go off, give them a bonus for doing so. And that's the moment when it goes as a demand response or as a two-way communication with that. That's the challenge that ESCOM is facing today. And we'll have more of that as their need for energy is growing.
No, absolutely, and so they're being quite smart, and they're like going, well, you know, actually forget all the little households, because how do we know? But there's big, massive consumers of energy. And so what was interesting was some of the things that are coming out in the news about Schneider is this whole thing where you guys are, and this is going slightly off that subject slightly, but you guys are starting to provide sort of cloud-based data and demand sort of response services and things like that. How's that being adopted by the utilities? Because I would imagine that certainly when the word cloud first started, and I come from the data center world, there was a big paranoia about, hang on a minute, I've got my box, it's right here, I can see it and I can secure it, I'm not putting it up there. What are you seeing in terms of adoption of that?
In this part of the world, it's still very initial stage. This is the time when telecom, IT, energy industries are converging and start to talk to each other. And there is part of the world, including in Asia, where I spent the last 14 years myself, where you see those big players communicating together. No one is able to make the grid and the electric grid smart alone. And this is a game of partnership. So we would have partners with IBM or Accenture, partner with France Telecom or Korea Telecom and other big players like that, for which the 3 or the 4 or 5 of us start to talk with the utility about how do we use all the measuring points from the market and use these massive amount of data to now bring intelligence back to the grid. But it starts with a smart home or an intelligent building, and then a more intelligent city, and then comes the whole city, the whole grid.
Yeah, you can't do it in one go. It's a bit too big. And where do you see that being pushed out the most? Because you know there is an argument where you can say, you know, much like in the telecom space, where the sort of developing, certainly India and places like that, where they actually just leapfrogged a whole generation, like fixed line technology. Forget that, we're going straight to mobile and intensive. Is there an analogy like that in the sort of energy side of things as well?
It's difficult to see, and even the whole business model today is yet to be created. There are pockets of excellence in Asia, in Singapore, in some parts of Japan, in California, when we have seen them to try to structure the way that all these players will end up making that a business. But it isn't clear today. It's still.
And what's driving those pockets of excellence? Is it visionary political leadership, or is there a DNA in there?
It's both public leadership, and I think California and some city in Asia are trying to portray an image of green and sustainable development. Plus also some private entrepreneurships. Schneider has been pioneer that. I quoted IBM. This is also a company that with Schneider Electric is trying to try to build what the future would need to look like, as there's always going to be a lot of resistance to generate more energy or to create more power plants and nuclear power. So we need to find on the demand side the solution that's going to help these two sides to communicate.
Yeah, it's a hugely complex problem as well, isn't it? If I can shift back a little bit, because we're clearly here at African Utility Week, although you wouldn't know it with the end result of this interview. But what are some of the things that you may have seen either already on the show floor that give you, that excite you personally about where this market's going, or what are you sort of looking forward to?
It's fairly new, to be humble and honest with you. I've been here for now a month and a half, and I'm discovering a continent of opportunities. In Schneider, we see Africa to be our next growth engine for our business. We have been here for years, but after a lot of focus and concentration in Asia in the last many years, we now are investing more significantly in this part of the world. But it's early days for me really to have an educated opinion on that.
Okay, well, I tell you what, we'll do this interview same time next year, and we'll get a bigger answer to that question. Eric, thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching. As you know, or if you don't know, Engerati, a lot of these interviews, there are over 600 presentations for you to download, and obviously white papers and case studies from companies like Schneider Electric and so on, which give you a bit more information about what's actually happening on the ground and a bit more detail. Thank you again for watching.